My name is Ava, and for the first year in this new country, I was a ghost who made sounds. My English was a collection of separate, clunky parts. I had the grammar from textbooks, the vocabulary from flashcards, but the music, the rhythm, the flow, the soul of the language was all wrong. I didn't speak. I assembled words like a machine, and it sounded like it. The world responded with a symphony of confusion. It was the barista at the coffee shop, his friendly smile freezing as he asked, "Sorry, what was that?" for the third time. It was my classmates in my university seminar, their eyes glazing over as I haltingly presented my project, my flat, monotone voice draining all the passion from my ideas. Every what was a small paper cut. Every blank stare was a door gently closed in my face. I was trapped in a glass box. I could see the vibrant world of conversation happening all around me, but I couldn't break in. My voice was the key that didn't fit the lock. The breaking point was a job interview for a marketing internship, a role that required creativity and persuasion. I had the skills, the portfolio was strong, but when I opened my mouth to answer the first question, "Tell us about yourself," I saw the change in their faces. The initial interest was replaced by a strained politeness. They were not listening to my words, they were deciphering them. That night, I sat on the floor of my tiny studio, the city's lights blurring through my unshed tears. I was drowning in a sea of advice. "Just speak more," they said. But how could I when every attempt was met with a wall? "Watch more movies." But I just read the subtitles. I felt hopeless. Then, in the depths of a language learning forum at 2 a.m., I found a strange term: shadowing. It sounded like a spy technique. The explanation was simple, almost too simple. You listen to a native speaker and try to mimic them exactly with a delay of just a split second. You don't just repeat the words, you copy the music, the ups and downs, the way they smush words together, the little pauses. You become their echo. It felt ridiculous, but I was desperate enough to try anything. I chose a film I knew by heart, a simple comedy. The next morning, at 6 a.m., I sat with my laptop, feeling foolish. I pressed play. The main character, a cheerful woman, said her first line. "Hey, you would not believe the day I've had." I paused, took a breath, and then in my robotic, accented tone, I parroted, "Hey, you would not believe the day I've had." It was a disaster. I tried again. This time, I closed my eyes. I didn't think about grammar or meaning. I just listened to the sound of her voice. I heard the lift on hey, the slide from wouldn't into believe, the weary drop on I've had. I let the rhythm wash over me. I pressed play again. "Hey, you would not believe the day I've had." And then I spoke, almost on top of her, like an echo in a canyon. "Hey, you would not believe the day I've had." It wasn't perfect, but something was different. For a fraction of a second, I wasn't Ava from Kiev struggling with English. I was a character in a movie complaining about her day. I had mimicked not just her words, but her feeling. That was the spark. My 6 a.m. shadowing sessions became my sacred ritual. My room echoed with the voices of movie stars, news anchors, and YouTube hosts. I would spend 15 minutes on a single sentence, repeating it until my mouth ached, until the strange shapes of the English vowels started to feel familiar on my tongue. The first sign of change came 3 weeks in. I was at the grocery store, lining up at the self-checkout. The machine flashed, "Unexpected item in bagging area." I sighed, and without thinking, muttered under my breath, "Oh, come on, what now?" It was a line I had shadowed from a sitcom. The assistant who came over heard me. He smiled. "They're the worst, aren't they?" he said, and fixed the machine. He understood me. Not just the words, but the tone, the frustration, the tiny joke. He heard a person, not a robot. I stood there for a moment, stunned. A tiny crack had appeared in the glass box. The real miracle happened on day 31. I was back at the same coffee shop, the scene of so many past humiliations. The barista, a new guy I hadn't seen before, looked at me. "What can I get for you?" I took a breath. I looked at him and said, "Can I get a large latte with oat milk for here, please?" The words came out, but they didn't sound like my old words. They were connected. Large latte flowed together. For here had a little lift at the end. It sounded natural. The barista didn't pause. He didn't squint. He didn't say, "What?" He just nodded, tapped the screen, and said, "Name for the order." It was the most mundane, ordinary interaction in the world. But for me, it was a thunderclap. He had understood me perfectly on the first try. The glass box had shattered. The confidence that came from being clearly heard was a drug. I started speaking more in class, my sentences now carrying the cadence of the presenters I had mimicked. I started making small talk with neighbors, using the melodic patterns I had stolen from 100 different movie characters. I hadn't just learned a technique, I had learned to listen differently. Shadowing taught me that language isn't a code to be cracked, but a song to be sung. You don't just learn the lyrics, you have to feel the beat. My mouth was no longer a machine assembling parts. It had learned to dance. And once you learn the steps, you never forget them.